What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're kicking off a brand new story that's all about food, revelry, and medieval swagger. The feast culture of the Middle Ages. Forget quiet dinners. These were epic blowouts where lords flexed their wealth, peasants grabbed a rare treat, and everyone ate like tomorrow was a fast day. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're hungry for this. Subscribe if you love these historical deep dives. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing our global crew. All right, grab a snack, dim the lights, and let's feast our way into the medieval world. Picture a medieval hall, smoky air, roaring fires, and tables groaning under piles of food. Feasts weren't just meals, they were events, the ultimate niche for showing off power, loyalty, or piety. Kings threw banquets to seal alliances. Lords hosted them to reward vassals, and churches held them to honor saints. Even peasants got in on it during harvest festivals. Though their spreads were humbler, feasts marked everything: weddings, coronations, or just surviving another winter. They were loud, messy, and the medieval equivalent of a viral TikTok party. Let's start with the setting. A lord's great hall was the stage, with stone walls hung with tapestries and floors strewn with rushes, basically herbs, to mask the smell of spilled ale and dog fur. Long trestle tables stretched end to end, packed with guests from knights to clerics. The high table, raised on a dais, was for the lord, his family, and VIPs, decked out with silver cups and linen cloths. Torches and candles lit the scene, casting a warm glow over faces flushed with wine. Musicians, minstrels with lutes or pipers cranked up the vibe, while jesters tumbled or told bawdy jokes. It was chaos, but the good kind. The food was the real star. Medieval feasts were about quantity and spectacle. A lord might serve whole roasted boars, their heads reattached for drama, or swans posed like they were still swimming. Peacocks were roasted, then redressed in their feathers, tail fanned out like a Pinterest centerpiece. For the elite, spices like cinnamon or saffron worth more than gold-flavored dishes. Screaming, "I'm rich!" Common dishes included pottages, thick stews, frumenty wheat porridge, and trenchers, flatbreads used as plates, soaked in juices and eaten or given to the poor. Meat was king. Venison, beef, or mutton for the rich. Pork or chicken for the rest. Fish ruled on fast days, with eel or herring swimming in herb sauces. Drinks flowed like rivers. Ale was the go-to, brewed in every village and chugged by all ages. Wine, imported from Bordeaux or Tuscany, was for the wealthy, served in pewter goblets or shared horns. Mead, fermented from honey, added a sweet kick, while spiced Hippocras wine mixed with cinnamon and cloves was a fancy nightcap. Getting tipsy was fine, but passing out under the table, that'd earn you a nickname like Sir Snores-a-Lot for life. Servants darted around, refilling cups and hauling platters, while dogs begged for scraps and the occasional hawk perched on a lord's wrist. Because why not? Feasts had rules, though manners mattered at least for the upper crust. You washed your hands in rose water before eating, shared a cup with your neighbor, and used a knife your own. BYO to cut meat. Spoons were for soups, but forks not yet invented. So fingers did the heavy lifting. Belching was cool, but spitting on the table was a no-go. The Book of Courtesy, a 15th century guide, warned against picking your nose or scratching your dog during dinner. For peasants, feasts were less fussy. Grab a hunk of bread, scoop some stew, and enjoy the rare chance to eat your fill. Social vibes were everything. Feasts were where deals got made, gossip spread, and rivalries flared. A lord might gift a knight a gold ring to secure loyalty, while a snubbed guest could storm out, plotting revenge. Toasts were big. Raising a cup to the king or a saint sparked cheers or fights, depending on the crowd. Entertainment kept things lively. Troubadours sang of love, acrobats flipped, and mystery plays acted out Bible stories. At big feasts, subtleties, sugar sculptures of castles or dragons wowed guests, proving the host's wealth and creativity. That's where we'll pause for now. Next chapter, we'll dig into the politics of feasting, the crazy dishes they served, and how these parties shaped medieval life. Drop a comment. What's the wildest medieval dish so far? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. What's good? Everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're diving back into the raucous world of medieval feast culture, where food was power and parties were politics. Last time, we set the scene. Great halls, epic dishes, and a vibe like a medieval rave. Tonight, we're getting into the juicy stuff. How feasts were a chessboard for alliances, the wildest recipes they cooked up, and why these blowouts were more than just a good time. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, let's get cozy and feast on some medieval drama. Feasts weren't just about stuffing your face. They were a political niche where lords played high-stakes games. Seating was a power move. At the high table, the lord sat center, flanked by his wife and top dogs bishops, knights, or visiting dukes. The closer you were to the host, the bigger your clout. Get stuck at the far end with the scruffy minstrels. That's a subtle "you're not that important" jab. Gifts were another flex. Handing a vassal a silver goblet or a hunting dog screamed loyalty. But skipping someone could spark a feud. In 1152, when Eleanor of Aquitaine's feast snubbed a rival, it fueled years of bad blood. Food was a diplomatic weapon, too. Serving rare delicacies like peacock or imported spices showed off wealth and trade connections. At a 1378 banquet for Emperor Charles XI of Forbes, the French king served onman, or concours pacoten, zero dishes, including a ship-shaped subtlety sailing on a sugar sea. To flex France's might, sharing a dish with your neighbor, literally eating off the same trencher built trust. But refusing could signal trouble. Toasts were make or break. A raised cup to the wrong lord could turn a party into a brawl. Feasts sealed deals, marriages, treaties, or knightly oaths, making them medieval boardrooms with better wine. Now, let's talk recipes, because medieval cooks went hard. The Form of Curry, a 14th century cookbook, lists dishes that sound like fantasy novels. Ever try blancmanger? It's a creamy mix of chicken, grease, and almonds, spiced with sugar fancy for the time. Or lamprey pie, where eel-like fish were baked in a coffin pastry crust with wine and cloves. For the bold, there was cockantrice, a pig and rooster stitched together, roasted to look like a mythical beast. Desserts weren't big, but custards or fruit tarts sprinkled with saffron closed the meal. Drinks got creative too. Clary was wine infused with sage, while Braggot mixed ale and honey for a boozy buzz. Cooking was no joke. Kitchens were like war zones, with massive hearths roasting whole oxen and cauldrons simmering stews for hundreds. Cooks, often low-born but skilled, juggled spices, sauces, and timing under pressure. Sauces were huge, think garlicky cameline, or tart verjuice made from unripe grapes. Presentation was key. A swan might be carved tableside, its neck propped up for drama. Food wasn't just fuel, it was theater, with every dish telling a story of wealth or wit. For peasants, feasts meant simpler fare bread, cheese, maybe a rabbit stew. But even they got a taste of the high life during village festivals. Feasts shaped society beyond the table. They reinforced hierarchy. Lords fed vassals to secure loyalty, while charity feasts for the poor showed piety. Guilds hosted their own banquets, cementing trade ties with roasted capons and loud toasts. The church got in on it, holding feasts for saints' days, though monks grumbled about gluttony while sipping spiced wine. Feasts also spread culture. Troubadours carried songs from France to Germany, and recipes like almond milk crossed borders. Even fashion got a boost. Guests rocked fur-lined robes or jeweled belts to outshine rivals, setting trends that rippled through courts. But feasts had a dark side. Gluttony was a sin, and overeating could land you in a confessional explaining why you went back for thirds on that swan. Waste was common. Leftovers often fed pigs or beggars. But rotting food spread disease. Drunken fights broke out. Knights throwing punches over a spilled goblet wasn't rare, and hosting a feast could bankrupt you. In 1468, a Burgundian duke's banquet for 500 guests nearly tanked his treasury. For peasants, a lord's feast might mean extra taxes or stolen crops to fund it, souring the fun. That's it for this chapter. Next time, we'll wrap up with the legacy of feast culture, its impact on art and society, and how it faded as times changed. Drop a comment. What's the craziest medieval recipe you heard? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel for the final chapter of our medieval feast culture saga. We've gorged on the vibes of great halls, the politics of seating, and some seriously wild dishes. Tonight, we're wrapping up with the lasting legacy of these feasts, how they shaped art, society, and even our modern dinner parties. Plus what happened when the medieval banquet faded. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. Let's get cozy and finish this feast. Feasts weren't just parties. They were cultural heavyweights. They left a mark on medieval art, from tapestries showing lords at table to manuscripts like the Très Riche Heure, where feasts glow with gold leaf. Painters captured the chaos, minstrels strumming, dogs stealing scraps, knights flirting over wine. These images weren't just pretty. They sold the idea of power and plenty. Music owed feasts big time. Troubadours' love songs, born in banquet halls, spread courtly romance across Europe. Even architecture got a boost. Great halls grew grander to host bigger crowds, with vaulted ceilings echoing laughter and lutes. Literature feasted on the theme too. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales has pilgrims swapping tales over ale, echoing real feast banter. Arthurian legends, like Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, paint feasts as nightly bonding sessions, with Merlin dishing wisdom alongside venison. Cookbooks like Le Viandier by Taillevent preserved recipes for posterity, turning kitchen hustle into written art. These works show feasts as more than meals. They were stages for human drama, from love to betrayal, all washed down with mead. Socially, feasts glued medieval life together. They reinforced bonds, lords fed knights to keep them loyal, while village feasts united peasants after harvests. Guilds threw banquets to flex their trade clout, and churches used them to draw worshippers. Feasts broke class barriers, if only for a night. A peasant might share ale with a squire at a festival. They also spread ideas. Guests carried recipes, songs, or gossip across borders, knitting Europe's cultures. Women played big roles too, hosting feasts to show piety or power, like Margaret of Anjou in 1450s England, whose banquets rivaled kings. Economically, feasts were engines. They drove trade spices from Asia, wine from Italy, salt from Germany, making merchants rich. Markets swelled to supply feasts, and guilds like butchers or vintners thrived. Towns built infrastructure mills, ovens, even wells to keep the food flowing. But the cost was steep. A 1396 feast for Richard II drained England's coffers, sparking grumbles. Peasants bore the brunt, paying taxes or labor to fund their lord's swan obsession. Waste and disease followed too. Rotting leftovers bred rats, and crowded halls spread infections like wildfire. The church had a love-hate thing with feasts. They funded saints' day banquets to draw crowds, but preachers like Bernard of Clairvaux railed against gluttony, calling overstuffed lords sinners with sauce. Sumptuary laws tried to curb excess, limiting dishes or spices by class. But nobody listened. By the 15th century, cracks showed. The Black Death cut populations, raising food costs, while Renaissance tastes leaned toward refined dining over medieval excess. In England, Puritan reforms in the 1600s slammed feasts as wasteful, pushing simpler meals. Yet the legacy lives on. Our Thanksgiving or Christmas dinners echo medieval harvest feasts, with shared tables and toasts, wedding receptions with their speeches and dances, mirror banquet traditions, even our obsession with food as status, think Michelin stars or Instagram plates, has medieval roots. Artifacts like the Bayeux Tapestry, showing Norman feasts, or surviving cookbooks, keep the vibe alive. Modern festivals, like Oktoberfest, carry the communal spirit of village feasts, proving the medieval urge to gather and gorge never died. Feasts were messy, glorious, and human. They fed bodies, egos, and bonds, shaping a world where a good meal could seal a kingdom or start a fight. From sugar castles to spilled ale, they left a recipe for connection we still follow today. That's the end of our feast culture saga. Thanks for dining with me. Drop a comment. What's the coolest feast legacy? Hit that like button if you loved this, and subscribe for more historical dives. Next, we're tackling a new story, so stay tuned. Catch you in the next one. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving into a new story that's all about mystery, prophecy, and divine vibes. The oracles of ancient Greece. These weren't just fortune tellers. They were the voice of the gods, guiding everything from wars to weddings. Before we jump in, hit that like button if you're pumped. Subscribe if you love these historical dives. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, grab a drink, get comfy, and let's step into the misty world of ancient Greece. Picture Greece in the 8th century BCE. Rugged hills, marble temples, and a people obsessed with fate. Oracles were the ultimate niche for divine insight. Places where mortals could ask the gods about their future. The most famous was Delphi, home to the Pythia, Apollo's priestess. But others, like Dodona or Didyma, drew crowds too. Kings sought oracles before battles, farmers before planting, and lovers before proposing. Why? The Greeks believed the gods knew all, and oracles were their hotline cryptic. Pricey, but worth it for a glimpse of destiny. Delphi was the rock star of oracles, nestled on Mount Parnassus. Its temple glowed with marble and gold, surrounded by misty springs. Pilgrims trekked miles to reach it, offering gifts like sheep or tripods to sweeten Apollo's mood. The Pythia, a woman chosen from local families, was the star. She'd sit on a tripod over a chasm, inhaling fumes, maybe ethylene gas, maybe just vibes, and channel Apollo's words. Her prophecies were mumbled, often gibberish, so priests translated them into poetic hexameters, think divine mad libs. Answers were vague, like know thyself, or a wall of wood will save you, leaving you to figure out the rest. Getting an oracle wasn't a walk-in deal. You paid a fee cash, livestock, or fancy vases, then waited your turn. Sometimes days. Wealthy clients, like Athenian generals, jumped the queue with big offerings. Before consulting, you purified yourself in the Castalian spring and sacrificed a goat. If its liver looked good, you were cleared to ask your question. Questions ranged from, will I win this war? To, should I marry Helen? The Pythia's answer, delivered in a trance, was final, no refunds, no follow-ups. Croesus, a Lydian king, famously asked if he'd beat Persia. The oracle said a great empire would fall. Spoiler, it was his own. Classic oracle burn. Oracles weren't just spiritual, they were political. Cities like Athens or Sparta used them to justify wars or laws. In 480 BCE, Delphi's wooden wall prophecy pushed Athens to build a navy, saving Greece from Persia at Salamis. But oracles could be bribed. Priests weren't above tweaking prophecies for gold. The Pythia's trance made it easy to spin her words, and rival cities accused each other of rigging the system. Still, faith in oracles was unshakable. Nobody marched to war or colonized a land without a nod from the gods. Life as an oracle wasn't glamorous. The Pythia, often middle-aged or older, lived a strict life, fasting and staying chaste during service. The fumes and stress could wreck her health. Some died young. Other oracles, like Dodona's priests, interpreted Zeus's will from rustling oak leaves or clanging bronze cauldrons, less trippy, but still intense. Training was minimal. Divine possession was the job requirement, though priests needed poetry skills to polish the gods' cryptic vibes. Despite the grind, oracles held mad respect, wielding influence over kings and commoners alike. That's where we'll pause for now. Next chapter, we'll dive into the rituals behind oracles, the scams that popped up, and how they shaped Greek life. Drop a comment. What's the wildest oracle fact so far? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. What's good? Everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're diving back into the mystical world of ancient Greek oracles, where gods whispered cryptic truths through priestesses and rustling leaves. Last time, we covered the big players like Delphi, the Pythia's trance, and why Greeks trusted these divine DMs. Tonight, we're zooming in on the rituals that powered oracles, the shady scams that crept in, and how they shaped everything from politics to personal dreams. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, let's get cozy and consult the gods. Oracles were a spiritual niche, but the rituals behind them were pure theater. At Delphi, the process was a production. Pilgrims arrived with offerings: goats, gold, or bronze tripods piling up at Apollo's temple like a divine tip jar. You'd wash in the Castalian spring, a chilly plunge to purify your soul. Then sacrifice an animal. Priests checked the liver. If it was smooth, you got a green light. The Pythia prepped in a secret chamber, fasting and chewing laurel leaves, sacred to Apollo. Maybe a mild buzz. She'd climb onto her tripod, fumes rising from the chasm below, and slip into a trance. Her words, often incoherent, were spun into poetry by priests, delivered with a side of gravitas. Other oracles had their own flair. At Dodona, Zeus spoke through an ancient oak tree, its leaves rustling in the wind. Priests, barefoot and sleeping on the ground, decoded the sounds, sometimes with help from clanging bronze cauldrons. At Didyma, Apollo's priests used a sacred spring, reading its ripples, or the flight of birds. These rituals weren't just spiritual, they were sensory, with incense, chants, and eerie vibes setting the mood. Pilgrims left awestruck, even if the answer was, try again next year. The show was half the magic. Scams were a dark underbelly. Oracles were big business. And where there's coin, there's con. Priests could be bribed to tweak prophecies. Sparta was notorious for slipping gold to Delphi's staff. Fake oracles popped up, like shady roadside psychics, offering cut-rate prophecies with zero divine credit. Some sold oracle kits, amulets, or dice etched with cryptic phrases for DIY divination. Even legit oracles played dirty. Vague answers let priests dodge blame when things went south. In 546 BCE, Croesus got burned by Delphi's empire-falling prophecy. But the priests just shrugged. Should have read the fine print. Buddy, pilgrims weren't always pure either. Some faked devotion to dodge taxes or skip military service, while others used oracles to settle grudges, asking loaded questions to shame rivals. Cities played hardball too. Athens accused Thebes of rigging Delphi during the Peloponnesian War, turning sacred ground into a PR battlefield. Despite the scams, faith held strong. Oracles were too woven into Greek life to dismiss, like trusting a sketchy GPS, because it's all you've got. Oracles shaped society in wild ways. Politically, they were kingmakers. Before the Persian Wars, Delphi's prophecies rallied Greece, while dodgy oracles sparked coups or exiles. Colonists never sailed without an oracle's blessing. Delphi greenlit settlements from Sicily to the Black Sea. Personally, oracles were life coaches. Farmers asked about crops, lovers about marriage. Even poets like Pindar sought divine inspo. Oracle stories fueled myths. Oedipus's tragic fate started with a Delphi prophecy, showing how oracles could haunt a psyche. They weren't just advice, they were destiny etched in marble. Economically, oracles were cash cows. Delphi's temple raked in offerings, from humble pots to golden statues, making it richer than some cities. Towns like Dodona boomed as pilgrim hubs, with inns, markets, and trinket stalls selling Apollo-approved charms. Trade routes grew to supply oracle sites, and artisans crafted votive gifts. Think bronze shields or clay figurines. But the flip side sucked. Pilgrims drained local food supplies, and bandits preyed on travelers. Oracle towns walked a tightrope between profit and chaos. That's it for this chapter. Next time, we'll wrap up with the legacy of oracles, their clash with new ideas, and how they still echo today. Drop a comment. What's the shadiest oracle scam you heard? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. Hey, everyone! Welcome back to the channel for the final chapter of our ancient Greek oracles saga. We've trekked through misty temples, cryptic prophecies, and the scams that spiced things up. Tonight, we're wrapping up with the legacy of oracles, how they shaped Greek culture, clashed with new ideas, and left echoes in our modern world. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. Let's get cozy and finish this divine journey. Oracles were cultural giants, leaving a mark on Greek art and thought. Temples like Delphi inspired epic architecture, marble columns, golden statues, and friezes of Apollo slaying serpents. Votive offerings, from clay pots to bronze chariots, filled museums showing pilgrims' devotion. Literature drank deep from oracles. Sophocles' Oedipus Rex hinges on a Delphi prophecy, turning personal doom into universal tragedy. Poets like Hesiod wove oracular wisdom into epics, while historians like Herodotus used prophecies to explain wars. Oracles weren't just plot devices. They were the pulse of Greek storytelling, blending fate and free will. Philosophy owed oracles too. Their vague answers sparked debate about truth and choice. Socrates, a Delphi fan, took know thyself as a life motto. Questioning everything, Plato used oracles to explore divine knowledge, while Stoics like Zeno saw them as proof of cosmic order. Even skeptics like Xenophanes mocked oracles, but wrestled with their influence. Oracles forced Greeks to think hard about destiny. Were you doomed? Or could you outsmart the gods? That question fueled their intellectual fire, burning from Athens to Alexandria. Socially, oracles were glue. They united Greeks, who bickered over everything. Under shared faith, Panhellenic sites like Delphi were neutral ground, where enemies met without swords. Festivals, like the Pythian Games, drew crowds to oracle towns, mixing sport, song, and prophecy. Oracles also gave voice to the powerless peasants, or women could ask the gods directly, bypassing elites, but they reinforced power too. Kings used prophecies to justify rule, and priests wielded soft power through Apollo's words. Oracles were a paradox, democratic yet manipulative, sacred yet shady. Economically, oracles were powerhouses. Delphi's wealth rivaled city-states, funding temples and wars. Pilgrims boosted local economies, inns, stables, and potters thrived. Trade networks grew to supply oracle sites, from marble for statues to incense for rituals. But the cost was real. Towns struggled with pilgrim crowds, and offerings drained rural wealth. By the 4th century BCE, cracks showed. Skeptics like Aristotle questioned divine voices, and wars drained oracle funds. Alexander the Great's conquests shifted focus to Eastern mysticism, dimming Greece's oracular star. The big blow came with Rome and Christianity. Romans respected oracles but favored their own augurs, reading bird flights over trances. By the 2nd century CE, Delphi's clout waned. Emperors like Nero looted its treasures. Christianity sealed the deal by 301 CE. Emperor Theodosius banned pagan practices, shutting oracle sites. Priests scattered, temples crumbled, and the Pythia's tripod went cold. Yet oracles lingered in Christian lore. Early saints' visions echoed prophetic trances, and pilgrimage sites like Jerusalem replaced Delphi's pull. The legacy lives on. Our obsession with prediction horoscopes, AI forecasts, mirrors, oracle fever. Delphi's Know Thyself still haunts self-help books and therapy couches. Modern festivals like Burning Man echo the communal vibe of Pythian games. Even pop culture loves oracles. Think The Matrix's oracle dishing cryptic advice. Archaeologists dig up Delphi's treasures. From bronze tripods to inscribed stones, keeping the story alive, oracles taught us to chase truth, even if it's vague, and to wrestle with fate in a messy world. Oracles were wild holy, human, and a bit dodgy. They gave Greeks a voice to the gods, a mirror for their fears, and a spark for their genius. From smoky trances to poetic riddles, they left a prophecy we still chase. The truth is out there, if you're brave enough to ask. That's the end of our Oracle saga. Thanks for seeking truth with me. Drop a comment. What's the coolest Oracle legacy? Hit that like button if you loved this, and subscribe for more historical dives. Next, we're tackling a new story, so stay tuned. Catch you in the next one. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're launching a new story that's all about adventure, danger, and epic sea voyages, the Viking Age of exploration. These Norse warriors weren't just raiders. They were master navigators, chasing new lands across stormy seas. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're pumped. Subscribe if you love these historical dives. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's sail into the Viking world. Picture Scandinavia around 800 CE. Fjords, forests, and a people itching to explore. The Viking Age, roughly 793 to 1066, was their niche for adventure, driven by long ships, ambition, and a knack for surviving brutal seas. Vikings weren't just bloodthirsty pirates. They were traders, settlers, and explorers, reaching from Baghdad to North America. Why sail? Overpopulation pushed young men to seek land, while trade promised wealth furs, amber, or slaves swapped for silver or silk. Some just craved fame, etching their names into sagas with daring voyages. Longships were the Vikings' secret weapon. These sleek, shallow draft boats, up to 100 feet long, could sail oceans or glide up rivers, clinker built with overlapping planks. They were tough, yet flexible, powered by square sails or oars. A carved dragon head on the prow scared enemies and spirits alike. Vikings navigated using the sun, stars, and sunstones, crystals like calcite that polarized light to find the sun in fog. No GPS-y, just guts and skill, landing them in places like Iceland, Greenland, and beyond. Raids kicked off the Viking Age. In 793, Norsemen hit Lindisfarne Monastery in England, looting gold and grabbing monks as slaves. Fast ships let them strike and vanish, terrorizing coasts from Ireland to France. But raiding was only half the story. Vikings traded as much as they fought, sailing to markets like Hedeby or Birka, swapping walrus ivory for Arabic coins. By the 9th century, they were settling too. Iceland became a Norse haven. By 874, its lava fields tamed into farms. Greenland followed, settled by Eric the Red. In 985, after he got exiled for murder. Talk about a glow-up. Exploration wasn't easy. Storms sank ships, ice crushed hulls, and starvation loomed on long voyages. Vikings packed dried fish, bread, and ale, but fresh water was scarce. Crews, often 30, 60 men, lived cheek by jowl, rowing through sleet or bailing out leaks. Hostile locals fought back Irish monks built round towers to spot raiders, while Byzantines used Greek fire to torch Viking fleets. Yet the Norse kept sailing, driven by a mix of greed, glory, and sheer stubbornness. Vikings weren't solo adventurers. They were a team. Jarl's chiefs led expeditions, bankrolling ships and picking crews. Free men joined for loot or land, while thralls' slaves rode or cooked. Women sailed. Two sagas tell of shield maidens like Lagertha, though most women managed farms or joined settlements. Navigation was a group effort. Experienced pilots read wave patterns or bird flights to find land. Skalds, Viking poets, spun tales of voyages, hyping crews with verses about Thor's hammer or Odin's ravens. That's where we'll pause for now. Next chapter, we'll dive into their epic destinations, the myths they carried, and how exploration shaped Viking life. Drop a comment. What's the coolest Viking voyage fact so far? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. What's good? Everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're sailing back into the Viking age of exploration, where Norse longships carved paths across uncharted seas. Last time, we covered their sleek ships, raiding routes, and why they chased new horizons. Tonight, we're zooming in on their epic destinations, the myths that fueled their voyages, and how exploration defined Viking society. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, let's get cozy and set sail again. The Vikings' niche was exploration, and their map was massive. Iceland was an early win, settled by 874. Its volcanic wastes became farms thanks to Norse grit. Greenland, harsher still, got colonized by Eric the Red in 985, with fjords supporting sheep and walrus hunts. But the big one, North America. Around 1000 CE, Leif Erikson, Eric's son, landed in Vinland, likely Newfoundland. Finding timber and grapes, jackpot for resource-starved Norse. The Vinland sagas describe turf houses and skirmishes with Skraeling's indigenous peoples. But harsh winters and hostile locals ended the dream. Still, Vikings beat Columbus by 500 years. Eastward, they hit the rivers of Russia, sailing to Byzantium and Baghdad. The Volga trade route made them rich, swapping furs for silver dirhams. In Constantinople, Vikings joined the Varangian Guard, elite bodyguards for emperors, earning gold and bragging rights. Westward, they colonized the British Isles. Dublin was a Norse hub by 840, while Normandy became a Viking duchy under Rollo in 911. These weren't just pit stops. Vikings blended with locals, leaving DNA and place names from York to Kiev. Myths were the wind in their sails. Vikings worshipped Odin, god of wisdom and wanderlust, who roamed the world seeking knowledge. Thor's hammer protected sailors from storms, while Freya's magic lured them to riches. Sagas, like Eagle's Saga, spun tales of heroes battling trolls or sea monsters, hyping real voyages. Rune stones, carved with runes, boasted of journeys Gunnar sailed to Miklagard, turning explorers into legends. Skalds chanted these stories at feasts, linking exploration to divine favor. Ship burials, like Oseberg's, packed with treasures, showed death as a final voyage to Valhalla. Exploration shaped Viking life. Economically, it was a gold mine. Trade brought silk, spices, and coins, fueling markets like Jorvik. Settlements like Iceland birthed new societies with things, assemblies debating laws. Socially, exploration was status. A jarl who sailed far was a big deal, his hall stuffed with looted crosses or eastern swords. Women gained clout too. Gudrid Thorbjarnardottir, a Vinland explorer, became a saga star. But risks were real. Shipwrecks, scurvy, or ambushes claimed lives. Families waited years for news, and widows ran farms alone. Technology evolved with exploration. Longships got bigger, with keels for stability and wool sails for speed. Tools like the sun compass, a wooden dial for navigation, showed Norse smarts. They adopted foreign tech too, like Arab astrolabes or Irish bell casting. Blending cultures, exploration wasn't just outward, it changed home. Norse art, like dragon-headed prows, mixed Celtic knots, or Islamic patterns. Christianity crept in, with settlers in England or Normandy converting, softening Odin's grip by 1000 CE. The dark side, exploration hurt locals. Raids enslaved thousands Irish annals. Curse heathen wolves, stealing monks. Settlements displaced tribes, like in Greenland's Inuit lands. Even Vikings suffered. Failed voyages drained clans, and feuds over loot sparked bloodbaths. By the 11th century, the Viking Age waned. Stronger kingdoms like England fought back, and trade outpaced raiding. Still, exploration's spark never died, lighting the way for later adventurers. That's it for this chapter. Next time, we'll wrap up with the legacy of Viking exploration, its global impact, and how it lives on. Drop a comment. What's the wildest Viking destination? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. Hey, everyone! Welcome back to the channel for the final chapter of our Viking Age of Exploration saga. We've sailed through stormy seas, epic lands, and myths that fueled Norse adventures. Tonight, we're wrapping up with the legacy of Viking exploration, how it reshaped the world, clashed with changing times, and still echoes in our modern age. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. Let's get cozy and finish this epic voyage. Viking exploration wasn't just a Norse niche. It redrew the medieval map. Their settlements left deep roots. Iceland's All Thing, founded in 930, is the world's oldest parliament, still running today. Normandy's Vikings morphed into Normans, conquering England in 1066 under William, blending Norse grit with French flair. In Russia, the Rus laid foundations for Kiev, shaping Slavic states. Culturally, Vikings were mixmasters, Irish art, fused with Norse carvings in Dublin, while Arabic coins inspired Scandinavian mints. Runestones, like Sweden's Rock, tell tales of global treks, preserving a legacy in stone. Trade was a game changer. Vikings linked east and west, hauling silk from China to silver from Samarkand. Markets like Burka or Jorvik buzzed with global goods, sparking urban growth. Their routes, Volga, Dnieper, North Atlantic, became medieval highways, outlasting the Viking Age. Economically, exploration built wealth, but it wasn't all rosy. Raiding wrecked communities and slave trade, a Viking staple, scarred lives from Ireland to Morocco. Settlements strained resources. Greenland's Norse vanished by 1450, likely from climate shifts and Inuit clashes. Art and literature drank from Viking voyages. Sagas like Grettir's Saga spun exploration into legend, with heroes battling seas or spirits. Skaldic poetry, chanted at feasts, hyped explorers as Odin's heirs. Wood carvings, like Norway's Erna's Stave Church, mixed Norse dragons with Christian crosses, showing cultural mashups. Even myths evolved. Thor's hammer charms spread to England, while Odin's wanderlust inspired tales like Volsunga Saga. These stories weren't just entertainment. They shaped Viking identity, tying far-flung colonies to Scandinavian roots. Socially, exploration shook things up. It gave young men, often second sons with no inheritance, a shot at glory. Women carved roles too. Freydis Eriksdottir, a Vinland voyager, wielded axes and ambition in sagas. Exploration broke class barriers. Thralls could earn freedom on voyages, while Jarls lost fortunes on failed raids. But it widened divides too. Rich traders hoarded silver, while poor farmers stayed home. Feuds over loot or land sparked saga's bloodiest chapters, like Njaal's Saga, where exploration's spoils fueled revenge. The Viking Age faded as Europe changed. By 1000 CE, Christian kings like Norway's Olaf the Nakent stamped out pagan raids, converting Norse to crosses. Stronger states England. France built navies to counter Viking speed. Trade shifted to cities like Venice, sidelining Norse ports. The 1066 Norman conquest, led by Viking descendants, marked the age's end, blending Norse into medieval Europe. Climate cooled, starving Greenland's colonies, while crusades stole exploration's thunder, redirecting adventure to Jerusalem. Yet Vikings' legacy sails on. Their longships inspired modern yachts, with clinker designs still used. Navigation tricks like sunstones echo in polar expeditions. Place names York, Dublin dot maps, while DNA from Iceland to Ukraine shows Norse blood. Sagas fuel pop culture. Vikings, or Assassin's Creed. Valhalla channel their grit. Archaeologists unearth treasures, Oseberg's ship. Vinland's nails keeping the story alive. Modern explorers, from Arctic trekkers to Mars rovers, carry Viking wanderlust. Chasing the unknown with Norse nerve, Viking exploration was raw, bold, and messy. It broke borders, built empires, and left scars, proving adventure shapes history as much as swords. From Vinland's shores to Baghdad's bazaars, Vikings showed us what happens when you sail beyond the horizon glory. Peril and a story that never sinks. That's the end of our Viking saga. Thanks for sailing with me. Drop a comment. What's the coolest Viking legacy? Hit that like button if you loved this, and subscribe for more historical dives. Next, we're tackling a new story, so stay tuned. Catch you in the next one. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're kicking off a new story that's all about stars, math, and ancient wisdom. The astronomy of Mesopotamia. These folks weren't just gazing at the sky. They were mapping the cosmos, predicting eclipses, and shaping science before telescopes existed. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're starry-eyed for this. Subscribe if you love these historical dives. And drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's soar into the ancient Near East. Picture Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE. Fertile rivers, ziggurat temples, and a people obsessed with the heavens, wedged between the Tigris and Euphrates, in modern-day Iraq. Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians built a civilization where stars were gods. Astronomy was their niche, blending math, religion, and survival. They watched the sky to time harvests, predict floods, or read divine moods. Kings relied on star signs to wage wars or build cities, making astronomers the rock stars of ancient courts. The night sky was their Bible. Planets, called wandering stars, were deities. Venus was Inanna, love goddess. Jupiter was Marduk, king of gods. Constellations, like Scorpio or Taurus, told stories of heroes or monsters. Mesopotamians named 12 zodiac signs by 1000 BCE, a system we still use. They tracked the moon's phases, calling it Nana, and used its 29 5-day cycle to craft a lunar calendar. Solar years, at 365 days, were tougher to pin, but they tweaked calendars with extra months to sync seasons, showing mad math skills. Tools were simple but slick. No telescopes, just eyes, clay tablets, and gnomons, sundial-like sticks for shadows. Observatories topped ziggurats, giving priests a front-row seat to the stars. Clay tablets, inscribed with cuneiform, recorded sky data, planetary paths, eclipses, even comets. The Enuma, Anu, Enlil, a 70-tablet series, cataloged omens like if the moon darkens, famine comes. These weren't guesses. Centuries of observations made Babylonians eclipse predictors by 700 BCE, outsmarting most ancient peers. Astronomers, often priests, were elite, called Ol Tupshar, Enuma, Anu, Enlil tablet scribes. They trained in temples, mastering math and writing. They used a base 60 system, why we have 60 seconds or 360 degrees, crunching numbers on clay with styluses. Their job, watch the sky nightly, report omens to kings, and keep time. A bad sign, like a blood-red moon, could halt a coronation or spark sacrifices. Mistakes weren't an option. A wrong prediction might cost your head, making astronomy a high-stakes gig. Why so serious? The sky was divine law. Mesopotamians saw celestial events as God's memos. Eclipses meant angry deities. Comets warned of war. Kings like Ashurbanipal built libraries, like Nineveh's, to hoard star data, treating it like state secrets. Astronomy wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. Farmers needed star-timed planting to dodge floods. Merchants used constellations to navigate deserts. Even justice leaned on stars. Courts set trial dates by lunar phases, tying human fate to cosmic rhythm. That's where we'll pause for now. Next chapter, we'll dive into their star-chasing methods, the myths behind the skies, and how astronomy ran Mesopotamian life. Drop a comment. What's the coolest star fact so far? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're diving back into the starry world of Mesopotamian astronomy, where ancient scribes mapped the cosmos with clay and math. Last time, we covered their sky-worshipping culture, slick tools, and why stars were divine GPS. Tonight, we're zooming in on their star-tracking tricks, the myths that lit up their skies, and how astronomy ruled every corner of Mesopotamian life. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. All right, let's get cozy and gaze at the ancient stars. Mesopotamian astronomy was a niche of precision, built on centuries of eyeballing the sky. Scribes stood on ziggurat roofs, tracking stars with gnomon sticks, casting shadows to mark time. They plotted planetary paths, noting Venus's 584-day cycle or Mars' reddish wanderings. Clay tablets, like the Embel Miu Elu APIN-C, 1000 BCE, listed star risings, setting seasons for plowing or sailing. Eclipses were their flex. By 700 BCE, Babylonians used math to predict lunar eclipses, spotting patterns called Saros cycles, 18-year repeats. No computers, just brains and clay, outclassing most ancient rivals. Math was their superpower. Using base 60, scribes crunched angles and orbits, inventing trigonometry basics. Tablets show division tables, square roots, even early algebra to track Jupiter's motion. They measured time with water clocks, dripping bowls for night shifts, and divided days into 12 double hours. A system we still echo. Errors were rare. A 4th century BCE tablet nailed Venus's position within minutes. This wasn't guesswork. It was data-driven, with scribes cross-checking centuries-old records to refine predictions. Myths gave stars soul. The sky was a divine soap opera. Planets were gods. Constellations, their stories. The Enuma Elish, a creation epic, casts Marduk Jupiter slaying Tiamat, her body forming the Milky Way. Scorpio was a monster sent to kill Orion, while Leo roared as Nergal, war god. Eclipses were cosmic tantrums. A dark moon meant Nana was mad, demanding prayers or goat sacrifices. Omens tied stars to life. If Venus approaches the bull, crops fail. These tales weren't just lore. They guided kings' wars or farmers' seeds, making astronomy a cosmic playbook. Astronomy ran Mesopotamia. Agriculture leaned on star calendars. Sirius's rising signaled flood season. Timing, barley planting, trade used constellations for night treks. Merchants followed Ursa Major to cross deserts. Politics bowed to the sky kings, like Hammurabi, consulted omens before laws or battles. In 671 BCE, Esarhaddon delayed a campaign when a comet flared. Fearing divine wrath, justice synced with stars, trials or executions aligned with lunar phases, tying human fate to celestial clocks. Even religion revolved around the heavens. Ziggurats mimicked cosmic mountains, linking Earth to gods. Scribes weren't lone stargazers. They were a team. Temples trained them in math, cuneiform, and rituals, with senior priests mentoring apprentices. Nightly watches, split duties. Some scanned stars, others etched tablets. Women joined too. Enheduanna, a 23rd century BCE priestess, wrote hymns linking stars to Inanna, showing female clout. Scribes reported to kings, their omens shaping policy or sacrifices. Errors sparked panic. A missed eclipse could mean divine disfavor. So accuracy was life or death. The dark side. Astronomy bred fear. Bad omens like a broken star meteor could halt armies or spark purges. Superstition trumped reason. A red moon might trigger mass prayers over practical fixes. Scribes wielded power but faced pressure. Kings like Nebuchadnezzar didn't take bad sky lightly. Temples hoarded wealth, draining taxes for stargazing ziggurats, while farmers starved. By 500 BCE, Persian rule shifted focus to Zoroastrian skies, dimming Babylonian stars, though their math endured. That's it for this chapter. Next time, we'll wrap up with the legacy of Mesopotamian astronomy, its global reach, and how it shines today. Drop a comment. What's the slickest star trick you heard? Hit that like button if you're loving this, and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel for the final chapter of our Mesopotamian astronomy saga. We've mapped stars, crunched ancient math, and seen how the sky ruled lives. Tonight, we're wrapping up with the legacy of this cosmic quest, how it shaped science, spread globally, and still twinkles in our modern world. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. I love our global crew. Let's get cozy and finish this starry journey. Mesopotamian astronomy's niche was game-changing, birthing science's roots. Their base 60 math, think 60 seconds, 360 degrees, still runs our clocks and maps. Tablets like MULE, APN laid out star catalogs, inspiring Greek astronomers like Ptolemy eclipse predictions, nailed by 700 BCE, set a bar for precision, with Saros cycles guiding later sky watchers. Their trigonometry, used to track Jupiter, echoed in Hipparchus's work, linking Babylon to Alexandria. This wasn't stargazing, it was data science, etched in clay, fueling the West's math obsession. Culturally, Mesopotamia's skies left a constellation of marks. The zodiac 12 signs like Aries or Libra started here, spreading to Greece, Rome, and your horoscope app. Myths like Marduk's cosmic battle inspired epics. The Epic of Gilgamesh ties heroes to stars. Echoing in Homer's Odyssey, art glowed with celestial vibes. Seals show Scorpio guarding kings, while ziggurats mimicked sky ladders. Even religion leaned starry. Inanna's Venus hymns shaped love poetry, rippling to Sappho's verses. These tales made the sky a shared story, uniting Sumer to Babylon. Globally, Mesopotamia's stars shone bright. By 500 BCE, Persian scribes carried Babylonian math to India, where it mixed with Vedic astronomy. Greeks, via Alexander's conquests, grabbed zodiacs and eclipse tricks, passing them to Rome. The Almagest, Ptolemy's 2nd century CE star Bible, owes debts to clay tablets. Jewish scholars in Babylon wove star lore into Talmudic timekeeping, while Arabs, post-Islam, translated Enuma, Anu, Enlil, fueling their golden age. From Baghdad's House of Wisdom to medieval Europe, Mesopotamian math lit science's path. Socially, astronomy bound Mesopotamia. It synced farmers to floods, merchants to routes, and kings to gods, creating order in chaos. Temples, as star hubs, trained scribes, fostering literacy and math. Women like Enheduanna left hymns, showing sky worship's inclusivity, but it bred fear. Too bad omens sparked sacrifices or purges, and priests hoarded power, taxing poor for ziggurats. By 300 BCE, Hellenistic rule diluted Babylonian focus, with Greek planet gods like Zeus outshining Marduk. Still, clay tablets endured, copied for centuries. The end came slowly. Roman sundials and Christian calendars sidelined lunar math by 300 CE. The 539 BCE fall of Babylon to Persia. Then Alexander's 331 BCE conquest shifted stargazing to new empires. Islamic astronomers, like al-Battani, kept the flame. But by 1000 CE, telescopes and Copernicus outpaced ancient ways. Christianity frowned on star omens as pagan, burying cuneiform under dogma. Yet excavations, like Nineveh's 19th century library dig, revived the story, with tablets now in museums like the British Museum. The legacy sparkles today. Our clocks, degrees, and zodiacs carry Mesopotamian DNA. NASA's eclipse models trace to Saros cycles, while exoplanet hunts echo scribes star chasing. Pop culture loves it. Babylon 5 Wars or Stargate nod to cosmic myths. Archaeologists decode tablets, revealing math that humbles modern coders. Even spirituality echoes Mesopotamia. Astrology's grip, from TikTok to tabloids, mirrors ancient omens. Their sky wasn't just stars, it was a map of human curiosity, guiding us from clay to cosmos. Mesopotamian astronomy was bold, precise, and human. It turned night into knowledge, fear into math, and gods into guides. From ziggurat roofs to modern labs, it taught us to look up, count, and dream, proving the stars belong to those who dare to read them. That's the end of our astronomy saga. Thanks for stargazing with me. Drop a comment. What's the coolest star legacy? Hit that like button if you loved this, and subscribe for more historical dives. We've covered a lot, so let me know what story you want next. Catch you in the next one.